Welcome to PTU Barbell episode 11 with Lukesha Morris. She's a sprinter, has represented Great Britain, Reading Athletics Club, and also just got her master's in biomechanics, so she knows her stuff. So welcome, Lukesha.
Thank you.
How are you? Good?
Yeah, so I'm all good, thank you.
Awesome. So I've had a look about your sort of background. So you were basically the best 13-year-old in the country for 2 seasons. At 15, you did really well as well. And then I can't find much else about you. So tell us let's go from where it all started out for you. Why did you start sprinting? You do 60 and 100 meters on some 75s. So why did you start out sprinting and what got you into it?
So what got me into it was like school district sports. So I just got put in the team, and then I won my sprint and the relay. And then I was approached by a coach at Reading Athletics who said to come down the track and try out the sessions. So that's sort of how I got into athletics, and that was when I was in year 6. And then I sort of just didn't lose, so I just kept racing and I just didn't lose, and I was like, I'm good at this.
Just didn't lose.
And I enjoyed winning, and I always find team sports difficult because I'd always get frustrated with other people on the team. I liked athletics because it was just me. So if I mucked up, it was my fault. If I won, it's all on me kind of thing. So I liked that. And then I just enjoyed it. And yeah, because I was good at it, I thought I may as well keep it going.
Awesome. So I'm useless with trying to find stats on athletics. So tell us what happened after you, because you was winning quite a lot of 15. And what happened what happened when you was around 15 years old? Because that was a predominant time for you, obviously at school as well. So what happened at 15, and then where did you go from there?
So I basically just started getting injured. So when I look back, all my coaches basically say I was running too fast for my body, so my body couldn't cope how quick I was running. And that's why every time I was racing, I just hurt myself, basically. So I ended up racing less. When I was 15, I had a lot of knee problems and sort of like growing pains. And then I went to Oaklands College. So that's when I was 16. And when I was there, that's when I did my ACL. So we were doing
sprinting as well.
Sorry?
Did you do that sprinting as well?
No, so we were doing a 360 jump in training, and it was like on wet grass. Jumped up and slipped at the same time, and my body went and my knee didn't, and it just came out. So it wasn't great. Kind of like a freak accident. So that happened, and then that put me out 2 years. So I missed under 17s completely, I think. So I missed out on the European Youths, World Juniors, World Youths, literally everything, which was not not good.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then I think second year under 20 is when I came back racing, and then I ran 11.7 that year. So it put me out for a long time, but it hasn't stopped me being able to run fast, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So 7, I was under 20, and then I had to move up to under 23s, and that's when I ran 11.5. And that's when I started competing for GB in England. And then I went to America for a training camp in Arizona. And there I was running really quick, really good. They were like, you're on track to run 11.3. So that was 2016 for Rio Olympics. So I was aiming for that. Everything was going well. When I came back, I fractured my foot. So my physios couldn't work out what was wrong. My foot was just hurting all the time. And they said it was a stress response and I could still run on it. And I was just strapping it up, doing the relay camps, and then taking the strap off, and my foot would just balloon, and I'd be like, something's wrong. It's not a stress response. So then I finally got a scan on it, and then they said I fractured it, and that put me out for the year. So I was really upset about that because that was like my breakthrough. That makes sense, and just went completely wrong. So that happened, and then that put me out for a year. And then 2017, I came back running around 11.7 again. So I was like, I'm not where I want to be. So 11.7 to me then was not good. So I'm like, that's not quick enough, basically. Then the year after, as 2018, I had loads of hamstring problems. I just kept pulling my hamstring every time I raced. And sort of from 2017 and 2018, my relationship with my coach was just breaking down. So I won't go into details, but we weren't on the same page, and he didn't believe in me, and he wasn't believing me when I said I was injured, that sort of thing. Yeah. So that happened. So I left in 2018, and I basically was like, I'm done. I've quit. Like, I'm not going to bother anymore, because I kind of just had enough, and like mentally I was just broken. Physically I was broken. I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then so I used to train in London. So then I came back to Reading. I was like, I'm just done going down there and training. So I had probably like a couple months off.
Where did you have to go to train? Was it quite far?
Yeah, so I used to train at Lee Valley in Enfield, which is basically where British athletes are based. British Athletics is based in Loughborough, but if you're in London, like that's where you go. So it was like a 2-hour drive there, 2-hour drive back every day, which was tiring. And I think that was linked to my injuries, because I wasn't recovering in between sessions, whereas everyone else would just get home within like 20 minutes.
Jump on the tube and get home. Sounds like you've had a lot of resilience to keep going. And I know you said you got to the point where you said, you just had enough, but, being plagued with injuries on and off from the age of, like you said, like 15 all the way to under 21, 23, did you say?
Yeah.
It shows a hell of a lot of mental resilience to keep going. And what saw you through to just keep going through those times? The love of running, the love of competition,
Yes, because I know I'm talented, and I know that so I've had so many injuries, and with those injuries, I can still make a final. It's like I know I can still make that jump. I'm not sort of done. I haven't peaked. I've still got things to work on. So in my head, I've always been like, I'm too good to quit. And when I see the other athletes who run for GB, like I used to be quicker than them, I used to be up there with them. So it kind of has always given me a sort of subtle like push. So having a bad day and I think, oh, okay, I've had enough of this. Then I'll think, okay, well, if they're there, I can get there. My journey's just more of a struggle, but I still think I can do it. And when I see the progress I make in training now, so since then, the progress I've made in the past 3 years has been really good. And I finally feel myself again.
What kind of changes have you made? So, as you said, you're not traveling so far, so you're getting more rest. Have you changed anything else in terms of, like preparation to competition, rehabilitation? You mentioned your hamstrings were tight. Has that been something you've focused on? Have you been able to identify like the weak points that you've been able to address and obviously work successfully on those? Yeah.
So when I came back, my mentor, so Simone Jacobs, I don't know if you heard of her, but she was a sprinter and she won a gold medal at the Olympics at the age of 16. And she rang me when I felt like quitting and just kind of said I'm too good to give up and I just need to listen to my body and sort of start again. So she introduced me to my coach, Roddy, who's based at Redden Athletics. So I
know of Roddy, yeah.
So he took me on and we sort of talked about what I've been through, what I've struggled with, my issues with my hamstrings. And then he just basically stripped me right back to basics. So I wasn't sprinting for about half the year. I was just doing drills, trying to change my running technique. In the gym, way more than I've ever been in the gym. So I gym pretty much every day now, whereas before I would gym 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm constantly in the gym strengthening my body so that I can run at the speed that I want to. He's been like amazing. So he did that. So we started back to basics, got my body strong, sort of had like a base of just strength and conditioning. And then the second year I started racing, but I wasn't running fast because I didn't really do any speed work or plyometrics. I just literally had a base conditioning just to get my body strong. And then it was just to see how I'd get on and what times I was running. And then last year indoors was the first year we'd put the majority of things back into training that I should have done. So that's the speed work, the plyometrics, everything I was scared to do, my body would always break down. So we put those back in. And then last year indoors, I ended up running a 7.5, which is equivalent to what I was running before I met him. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm back where I was before I left my old group. So I was happy with that. I got an England call up. So I was getting my name back out there. Yeah. And obviously COVID happened. But with that, in the past 2 years, I've also been working with this guy called Duncan Foster, who's a mindset coach.
Yeah.
So he's also helped me because I basically didn't believe in myself. I was just like, I know what I want to do, but I get there. And I was like, when I'm racing, all I'm thinking about is injured. And you don't want to be thinking about that on the start line. You want to be thinking about winning. So I was like, no matter what I seem to do in training, when I get on that start line, I'm just scared to race. So he's worked a lot with me as well to change my mindset. So I now have a race day routine, things that I'll go through in my head to get me in the zone to race and get me focusing on the right things. And I seem to be running faster from that as well.
Wow, it's good. Sounds like Roddy was able to identify the weaknesses, made you a very durable, resilient runner with the basics. And then obviously, as you were able to cope with, the competing, was then able to just take you to the next level slowly but slowly, working on obviously your strengths and just fine tuning those. So that's cool. It's very good.
Was your maybe not say your old coach, but your old philosophy like? I know back in the day they didn't want a lot of sprinters doing too much heavy weights because they're too big. Because I always remember the English 4x100. They always blamed him because he was too big. I can't remember the guy. He like shoulder bars the other guy out of the way. So was it under like that mentality? You didn't want to get too big and heavy, or was it just not structured enough? And obviously you're into biomechanics now, so you probably understand a lot more now than you did back then.
I think in my old group, the training program's based on full-time athlete. So the way they train is you have a track session in the morning and then you'd have a gym session pretty much straight after. And what I've kind of realized is that doesn't work for me. My body can't cope with putting that much stress through my body on the track and then straight in the gym. Like it just damaged my nervous system, and that's why I was getting loads of hamstring problems. And when you're in a training group, the focus isn't on you, it's on the group. And the athletes I was training with, they were competing for GB more than me because obviously I was getting injured. So the focus wasn't on me, and I was doing their program and it wasn't working for me. Whereas now, I don't train in a group. I just train with me and my coach, Roddy. So his eyes are always on me. He's always looking at my weaknesses, what I need to strengthen, what I'm good at, what I need to improve. So my program's really specific to me now. And it's not set in stone. So my training program before was a 4-week block. And I had to do this session, this session, this session And even if my body was not in a good place, I'd still have to do that session. And that's how I kept breaking down, because I wasn't listening to my body. Whereas now I do a 3-week block, 1 week where it's a down week, where my intensity and everything comes down, which lets my body recover and get ready for the next training block. And then during those 3 weeks, if anything happens that I'm like, this is hurting or I don't feel right, we back right off. So my program isn't set in stone. Like if things need to be changed or sessions need to be moved around, they do. And that also helps me not get injured, basically.
Yeah, definitely. I think I guess that 3-week block and 1 week down, I guess sits in the fact that you're a female as well. It definitely helps when you have like push and pull. Like I always say to some of my clients, like push and pull weeks, like especially if your hormones going up and down and how your cycle's working, like things like that. So do you find that actually, like you do need a pull week sometimes when you're, fuck me, this is just too much, and when you're feeling on it, you just push it extra?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, what was your question? The training.
So basically, just what's your training like now? Actually, so were they too focused? So they weren't letting you train enough in the gym properly. Like what's your just explain your training now? Go for it.
Yeah. So in my old group, our strength and conditioning, the coach I had before, he was a strength and conditioning coach. So he wrote our programs and our track programs, but when we were in the gym, he didn't actually look at our technique or anything. So when I started with Roddy, he was like, your technique's really bad in the gym. I had to literally start. It was like shocking. He was like, no wonder you're getting injured. So we started off mainly fixing my technique in the gym. And then now my program, I run 3 times a week, 3 to 4 times a week is my track sessions. And then I gym, I have 2 heavy days. And then I have 2 days where it's just physio exercises. And then the other days are plyometrics and circuits. So it's a lot more conditioning than I used to do. Whereas before I would literally do 3 gym sessions and like 5 track sessions. It was literally so much running. So I do less running now and more conditioning for my body. And that helps just because I've got a small frame. Put so much force through my body. I just need to be able to cope with that force, because that's why I was getting injured. And obviously weights is the key for that.
I bet your hamstrings thank you for not being sat for 2 hours to drive to London and then maximally work and then have to sit again for another 2 hours before you come back. So sometimes it's the simple things as well.
What does a simple training session look like for you at the moment? So just to explain your 2 heavy days and your plyometric days, and just give us an idea of what that looks like. Obviously, it's specific to you, but I'm going to guess there's probably a lot of similar basic exercises in there that you're going to be just doing correctly anyway.
Yeah, so my gym days are just like Olympic lifts. So I'll do cleans, like deadlifts, RDLs, split squats, bench press, pull-ups, that sort of thing. 3 days of that. And then my plyometrics is like box jumps, hurdle jumps, movement jumps, depth jumps.
Jump.
But yeah, my plyo days, I won't have any gym that day. It will just be like plyos and a circuit, just so I don't break down. I'm not doing too much.
Yeah. Can you plug Duncan Foster a little bit? Just tell us what he does for you and how that actually improved your game, because I just actually quickly Googled him and he's worked with a lot of big athletes, big teams, American, English, Scottish. So what does he actually do how did he get you from where you was to where you are today?
So I pretty much talk to him once a week when they started working with him, and he'd also come to my track sessions. So my initial problem was because I was getting injured all the time. That was just all I was thinking about in training. I wouldn't think I could get through a training session, and then when I was race, I'd be like, I can't race. So because I didn't believe in myself, and I was always worrying about getting injured. That was my main issue. So he'd come to my training sessions and just ask me questions. So be like, why do you think you're going to get injured, or how was that run? Say I said, oh, I feel my hamstring. He'd be like, okay, so why do you think you're feeling your hamstring? Then we worked out that my hamstring was completely fine, it was just in my head. But it was just because I'd had so many issues with it. I was like, it's still there. So he would come to my sessions and then be like, your hamstring is fine. It's in your head, go and run again. Now you know your hamstring's fine, you can go and run. And then he sort of just talked me out of it.
Yeah.
And then when we started racing, that's when I realised, okay, I'm actually still worrying about getting injured. So we ended up making a race routine. So I just have certain words that I'll have in my head. So I always have a bottle, which in sprinting, you have a warm-up area and it's kind of like quite intimidating, and people try and like stare you down and like psych you out. Like it's not the nicest. So now I just have a couple of words on my bottle. So I am completely not focused on racing until my coach says go and warm up. When I go and warm up, that's when I put my music on, headphones, so no one can talk to me. I'll read the words in my bottle and they'll get me focused on the right things. So I'm not worrying about external things. And then I've got like 3 phases to my warm up. So every time I go through a phase, I'll look at my water bottle to check, to keep me on track, or check if I'm going off track with what I'm thinking about or overthinking something, it'll get me back on track. So I do that. And then once I've warmed up, I'll do a couple of starts with my coach. If I've got any worries or anything, that's when I speak to him. And then I also write a couple of things on my hand. So when I do big races, we have a call-up room. So you do your warm-up and then you're in a call-up for 20 minutes to half an hour with the people you're racing, and they just psych you out, stare you down, talk to you to get you like not focused, and then you panic and then you run bad kind of thing. So I have some words that I write on my hand that also keep me focused. So if I start getting really nervous or worried or just not focusing on what I need to do in my race, they'll get me back on track. And then on the start line, I can look at my hand as well. So I always look at my hand with my words when we're on the track and sort of all lined up, so that I'll look at my hand, focus. It sort of triggers you into the right mindset.
Yeah, I love that. It's like a cognitive behavioural therapy, isn't it? Sort of thing.
So that's kind of how he's helped me, is by giving me a routine. No matter what race I do, big or small, it feels exactly the same. And that makes me not feel nervous when I'm doing a big one, because it feels exactly the same as if I was doing a club competition.
Awesome. I love that. I think that's amazing. I was just going to quickly ask you about like other support, like your family, your parents, just because obviously those 2-hour drives, man, that's good going. Or was you driving yourself those? Or when you was younger, who was looking after you there?
Yeah, so when I was younger, my parents had a lot more involvement with my training. But when I turned 17, I learned to drive, so I would just drive to training. And
2 hours.
Yeah, because I was training as a full-time athlete. I trained in the day, so obviously my mum and dad were at work.
Yeah.
Drive, but yeah, I didn't enjoy this drive.
Massive respect. You got a huge drive there. Like, is there anything you'd like sort of say to young girls and males as well at the moment that just keeps you going, like keeps you on track? Like, especially you probably see a lot of good people at Reading Athletics. As I know, there's a lot of young people down there. One of my clients, his son, I think, runs down there, and he's really fast.
Yeah. So I actually do coach at Reading Athletics too.
Awesome.
Started helping out there. So I do get a lot of the younger ones sort of asking me questions and things. So I always say to them, like, I'm approachable on social media. If you want to ask me a question, literally just message me and I'll get back to you. So I always make sure I'm like approachable for the younger generation. But in terms of what motivates me, so lockdown's obviously been really difficult. First lockdown I found easy. I was fine. I was gymming in my garden, and then just going down to the track on my own, and I'd just video call my coach so he could see me running on the video, and then he'd give me feedback in between my runs. So that's sort of how I did the first lockdown, which was fine. And then this one from December to now, probably the hardest one. So by Christmas, when the lockdown got announced, my coach just was not happy and just like cut off everyone. So I was like, am I training today? What training session do I have? So I ended up having a couple of weeks off before Christmas, and I absolutely loved it. And I was like, I can get used to this, not training at all. It was Christmas, and then I was like, okay, I can't not train. I need to get back into it. So I had Christmas off, and then I ended up just going on a few runs. And we were told the tracks were closed. So the first lockdown, we weren't told the tracks were closed. So like I could still go down to Bracknell and just use it.
Yeah.
But this time, people were getting kicked off. There's like a security card there. So he'd kick everybody off the track. And then it didn't happen directly to me, but people were getting fined. And then as an athlete, you have an England athletics license, which allows you to compete. People's licenses were getting like terminated and things. So I was like, okay, I'm not risking this. So I haven't been on the track for 4 months. So that's been really difficult, having to train on grass. And then in January, when it was like really wet, cold, it was too cold for me to sprint, and it wasn't safe enough because the ground was so wet.
It's too cold for me to do anything in January.
Yeah, to run on treadmill. So I still had access to a gym because I'm an elite athlete, luckily. Because I'm classed as an elite athlete.
You can't run outside.
That's crazy, isn't it? I was just thinking that, elite sportsmen, professional athletes are allowed to carry on their training, but an elite athlete running for Great Britain, representing, national level, like you're not allowed to run on a track.
So with athletics, because the tracks are like run by the council, they close the tracks. So no matter what level athlete you are, the track's closed, you can't use it. So I would have to go to like London basically to use a track, and I didn't want to do that 2-hour drive.
Even when we had Ben Fletcher on, a judo guy for Ireland, he was saying that Bath just shut everything as well. So he couldn't even train at Bath. He had to come home and sit indoors, basically.
Yeah, so luckily I still had access to a gym. Otherwise I would have gone crazy. So January I was running on a treadmill, which wasn't great because the highest speed on the treadmill basically is too slow for me. So I was running, but I wasn't sprinting. So I actually lost fitness from doing it, which was really annoying. And running on a treadmill would make my shins hurt, like if I was doing it regularly. So it kind of had a couple of implications. And then February, we went back outside because it was a bit warmer and the ground was a bit harder. So I've been able to run outside for past couple of weeks to get my fitness back up. I don't like running on the grass because it's like uneven. Just put your foot down and spring back off. And I'm sort of worrying about twisting my ankle. So it's not been great, but I'm like, it's better than nothing. And then I've also made a lot of progress in the gym. So what my coach has done this past lockdown is just set me goals, just small goals, couple of weeks, I want you here. So that's kept me motivated. So what I would say is, like, with the lockdown, no matter what's going on, what you can access, set yourself realistic goals that you can achieve within that month. And then once you can tick that box, then you can move on to another goal. So it kind of keeps you making progress without doing the things you want to be doing, I'd say.
And something is better than nothing.
Yeah, that as well, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
How do you keep your nutrition on track over Christmas while not training? What does it look like for you? Obviously, you're in great shape, and all the people in the sprinting lineup are in great shape too.
So Christmas, I definitely ate what I wanted. And then from January, I set myself a weight goal. So obviously I put on weight over Christmas. So I think I gave myself 8 weeks. I didn't put on too much, but like I feel like 3 to 4 kg. So I was like, I need to get this back down.
Just rewind. I don't want to intrude too much, but how much do you weigh? That's probably quite a lot for someone your size.
No. So I 9
Bro, you
kg.
never ask a lady how much they weigh.
No, when you're an elite athlete, it's open to anybody.
I'm really light. So for sprinters, you should be light anyway. You shouldn't be heavy. If you're heavy, you're not going to run fast.
59 to 64. That's quite a big jump, or 63.
Like for me, anything over 60 for me is too heavy. My race weight's 57. So I was obviously over because I'd eaten what I wanted over Christmas. So I was just like, I need to restrict, and in my head, it's more about performance. If I'm lighter, I'm going to have a better power to weight ratio. So I'm going to run faster. So in my head, that's all I do. So I just cut down by cutting my carbs. So I still eat carbs, but I would just cut them down. So I won't have any for breakfast. And then I'd have carbs after my training session in the morning. I always train twice a day. So I have an AM and a PM session. So I train, have carbs with my meal, and then the evening one I'd have carbs, but like a quarter of amount rather than, say it was like a quarter instead. So I'd cut my carbs and probably increase my fat. So just like avocados, eggs, that sort of thing. And then I'd always have half a plate of vegetables with like every meal, and I cut down less than 8 weeks.
What's your like your binge on meal? Like, Usain Bolt is KFC. Huh?
Like what do I eat on my cheat day?
Yeah.
So I'm a sweet tooth. So I like the big giant cookies. I love sweets. And I like chocolate. I like pizza. They're probably my go-to cheat things. And like cake, like just desserts in general. I'll be like, okay, my cheat day, I'm gonna have a dessert. Or I have a like slice of pizza. So I don't have a cheat day, I have a cheat meal.
Yeah.
It like keeps me satisfied but doesn't affect my weight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you take any supplements, Lukesha?
Yeah, so I take basically I have a nutritionist, and because of the level athlete I am, I have to get supplements batch tested. Otherwise, it could have contaminated substances in, and then if I had a drugs test, I could fail it. So everything I have has to be batch tested. So I use a company called Elite Sport, and they're really good. So they do a pack called Elite Sport Essentials, and that's an omega-3 probiotic and multivitamin. So I always have those every day, just as like maintenance. And then I'll have protein shakes, but I have a lot of allergies, so I have the vegan one. And then that's all I take. So protein shake and those 3 supplements. And then I'd have a vitamin D and an iron tablet and a calcium. And then I also take osteocare for my bones. So it's quite a lot, but it's just like an everyday maintenance thing. I don't take things like creatine. I don't think what else some sprinters take. Like beta aniline, is it? Something like that.
Yeah.
I those, just because I've had bad experiences with them. And speaking to my nutritionist, she's like, you don't need them. And BCAAs, I got told they're really bad for you, so I don't take those anymore, as I used to take those as well. It's just for my sport, I don't need them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. You're just putting the right stuff in that you need to get the right thing out, basically.
Yeah.
Which is perfect. I just want to rewind a little bit because we didn't touch on it. Who do you want to race, and who do you want to beat, or do you not think like that? And also, who do you look up to for like inspiration? Like, so in the same sense as you look up to inspiration, but you want to beat them at the same time, or you want to race against them, or just be in the same lineup. Like, is there someone out there you're like, I want to kick your ass?
So for me, I don't really look at, because people always ask me like, oh, do you know this athlete? Do you know this athlete? Do you race them? And I'm like, yes, I know them and I race them. Because it's so hard to make it to the top. It's like you have so much respect for everyone. So for me, obviously I want to beat people. I wouldn't say there's like particular people I want to beat. Obviously, just every race I do, I'm going in there to win. I'm not going into that race not to win. So no matter who I'm racing, whether they're way faster than me or not, when I'm on that start line, I'm thinking I'm going to win this race. So that's sort of the way I think, even though sometimes it's not realistic. But I'm going to do all I can to win that race. And usually that will end up with me running a PB. So for me, I'm my competition. If I can run faster and better myself, then I'm happy, if that makes sense. And then I'm probably a weird athlete, because I wouldn't say there's like one particular athlete that I just like I'm inspired by. I kind of just get inspired by hearing people's stories and their success, because I know how hard it is. So the American English gardener, I really respect her because she's gone through similar stuff to me. She's had ACLs, injuries, and she runs sub 11. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't impact you in the way that some people think. So it's like when I can relate to people, that sort of inspires me and makes me want to continue. And then I like seeing all the British athletes do really well. So, and that sounds kind of weird because they are my competition and I'm trying to make that team. But it's like when you see your competitors doing well, it inspires you because you want to train harder so that you get that opportunity and you can do the same thing.
And I guess it's nice to see that, you know, although it's not a team sport, but actually in the background, like you say, you're training almost all together in a pod. So if the pod's doing well, that all the pods are going to do well. Or, you know, if they're doing well, then you're going to all do well, hopefully.
Yeah. And for me, if I want to compete on that world stage, they're my first target. Like I have to beat them first before I can go and compete against the world. So that's what motivates me as well. It's not like a particular person or I need to beat certain people. It's just for me, if that's my target, these athletes in the country, like the top 6 or whatever, they're my goal. Once I get to that level and I'm competing with them and I'm making teams, then I know, okay, I can go and compete against the world now.
Do you have a numbers goal for this year, or is it just to keep on staying current?
Staying fit and healthy, no injuries, and just gradually improving your time.
Yeah. So my goal this year is literally just to start training back on the track, do my speed work, and then when I'm ready to race, make sure when I race, I run quick. And then my target's Commonwealths next year. That's my goal. So as long as I can get back on the radar by the end of this season, and then have a good indoors to be on the radar for Commonwealths, that's my goal.
Awesome. Fucking great goal, to be fair. Awesome. We always ask, what's your sort of quote that you live and train by? Is there anything that maybe you just like you always write on your bottle or always write on your hand, or a quote or like a word or something that, you know, you look at and you really resonate with it a lot? You don't have to have one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like if I actually think anything.
You just write nothing on your bottle, and every time it's just nothing.
It's my routine, so it doesn't make me like train. It just triggers me to get in the right zone for racing. It's not really like
Yeah.
Thing like if I read it in training, I wouldn't train harder. I probably think, to be honest, it's probably just make small goals. So I always have goals. So every week I set myself some goals, and that's what I focus on. Each training session I do, I have a goal, and I make sure I achieve that goal. If I don't achieve it, I get really down about it. But if it's sort of like, I'd probably say my quote something like small steps and like small targets sort of all add up to one big massive progress, and then you'll jump you want. So that's kind of how I work, is just small goals every day, every week. They all add up, and then within that month I've made a huge amount of progress as opposed to just like something.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. You could just put your name after that. 2021 sweet.
Small steps equals big strides. There you go. You can have that one for free.
Lukesha et al. I don't know if you have any sponsors or anything, or anyone you want to shout out. We plug a few people for you, or is there anyone you want to like give a little shout out to for our listeners?
Shout out Roddy, because I've heard good things about him. He sounds like a good coach.
Yeah, can we get him on?
Stuff. Good guy.
I mean, if you wouldn't mind doing a talk. But yeah, I don't have any sponsors at the moment, just because with COVID and everything's gone a bit wrong. And for me, I don't want to approach companies until I'm running quick again. But I would say my sort of biggest sponsor at the moment is Pulsate and Nirvana Spa. So they sponsor me, and that really helps with my training and recovery. So they're like a big part of my training. And then obviously Duncan and Roddy, my coach, my mentor Simone, and my physios Gordon and Dan at Go Perform.
Oh, wicked! Yeah, Go Perform, sweet, awesome. Are you helping Maiden Early do something for their PE department as well?
So they did a raffle to get some equipment for their department.
Oh, wicked!
I also I have my own coaching business.
Yeah. So, plug yourself, woman. Plug yourself.
Yeah. Shout out.
I'm really quick. I run fast. Come train with me.
So I gave a free coaching like sprint session to the school. So I don't know who won it. I haven't been contacted yet.
Oh,
but I do have my own coaching business where I help athletes and some footballers improve.
How do they find you? How do they find you?
So I've got an Instagram account, Lukesha Morris Performance. So that's my Instagram, and I also have it on Facebook, but people can also contact me on my personal one, which is just Lukesha Morris. So yeah, that's probably it.
Wicked. Thank you very much for coming on. That's been awesome. Great talking to you, actually, a bit more in depth, actually. So that was awesome. Sorry, what did you say?
I said no worries.
It keeps on cutting out sometimes, don't it?
Me as well.
Wicked. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Lukesha.
Yeah, no worries.